Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy. I'm the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm reporting again live from my little cabin in the woods called Murphy's Law here in East Texas. And joining me tonight is our guest host, author for our Breathless Bubbles and Books daily blog. Breathless Bubbles and Books is where we pair our authors' books with this award-winning wine from Sonoma, California. And TK has graciously agreed to co-host the beginning of this week because everybody's getting ready for our annual conference, of which Teresa is TK Thorne, who will also be featured at our weekend. So everybody say hi to TK Thorne. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Kathy, and hi, everybody. I'm just delighted to be with you, and I guess you could call me a subject of the Queen, and happy to be with you.
We all deserve to wear the crown, and I know yours is on order, so.
It's coming, though.
Oh, don't worry about it. But the book that we are showcasing right now, it's the only one I have of hers, but she's got two more we're going to talk about. House of Rose. And I want her to notice that I wore my rose blouse today with my red rose lipstick in honor of this wonderful Magic City story. This is quite the book because, oh, here comes Doug. Here comes Doug Thomas. Let's get him on board. This is quite the book because I don't think I always look for books that tell a story I haven't heard before. And I'm going to guarantee this is one you have not heard before. So give them a little synopsis about your story. We don't want to give anything away because we want everybody to order your book, but tell us about the House of Rose.
Well, House of Rose is about a Birmingham police officer who discovers she's a witch. And when I tell people that I was a Birmingham police officer for 20-some plus years, and when I tell people that, I promise you the reaction that I get 9 times out of 10 is, oh, is it autobiographical? Well, I've just about capitulated to that, and I just say yes, absolutely, 100%. But you know, as a police officer, I have to make an admission that mysteries don't interest me very much because it's too much. It's like work, you know. It's not escape; it's work. And I also don't like roller coasters because who the hell wants to get scared? I know what being scared is like.
And you're on this roller coaster ride with us. Hang on, girl. You better strap that seatbelt. Go ahead.
Different kind of roller coaster. I'm all game for that. But Rose does not know she's a witch at the beginning of this book, and she finds herself in the middle of a police officer's worst nightmare, which is that she chases a suspect down an alley and has to shoot him, and then has to deal with it, and then finds out she's a witch.
Well, this is a story I bet nobody's heard before because, you know, we've heard about witches, we've heard about police officers, but we've never heard the combination of the two. And I'm going to tell you that I met Teresa at the Pat Conroy Low Country Book Festival down in Beaufort, South Carolina. In fact, we shared a house with some other people, a guest house during the event, and we ate pie. And we hung out and we told stories. And we told stories. I brought these pies. I stopped in Natchitoches, Louisiana on my way down there and put them in these coolers. And I think I brought a coconut cream. Do you remember what else I brought? They're homemade.
It was wonderful. That coconut cream is one I remember.
Well,
sure.
The crazy thing about it is people go, oh, those are store-bought. And I go, no. I got these at the French market in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and they're made from scratch. And we just ate. I've never seen a pie go so far. I mean, we had 2 of them, but we had people just dropping by and saying, hey, I hear you have pie. It's a wonderful way to make new friends, people. And pie it gets rid of all the wrinkles.
Is that what that says?
People always ask me, you don't have any wrinkles. And I said, well, mostly folks, it's just good genetics. You know, my mother didn't have any either, but pie certainly fills in the hollows.
There you go. I love that.
So you've got a witch in this story, and you've got, now where in the world did you come up with this idea, Teresa? I want to know how your mind works. How did you come up with a police officer that's a witch?
Oh, Lord. Well, I have written, the answer to that, it kind of goes around in a circle, but I, as I said, I was never interested in writing about police or crime. And I ended up writing 2 historical novels that are set in the ancient Middle East. So
these 2 I haven't read. I've got to read them because I'm fascinated with this.
I hope you do some.
I will.
So one of them is Noah's Wife, and it is the story of Noah's wife, but it's my story of Noah's wife. But I did a ton of research for it, and I went to Turkey for 3 weeks.
Oh, I would have loved to have gone with you.
And then, oh yeah, and then I wrote this book about Lot's wife. If you remember, Lot is the woman, the disobedient woman. You would love this, who turned and looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. So both of these.
I hope you weren't going to say I was like Lot's wife, but thank you.
Well, I didn't say that, but
okay.
Wonderful character.
I'm still here. I'm not.
You're still there. And there's a dog in this book too. There's a bird in this one, and a dog in this one, and cats in House of Rose.
Oh well,
so I love cats. And I got horses next to do. But after that, I wrote this book, which is nonfiction, called Last Chance for Justice, and it is about the 1963 Birmingham church bombing. And I wrote that, I never set out to write it. Basically, it turns out that one of the investigators on this case is a friend of mine, somebody I knew, and I had no idea he was doing this. I heard him talk, and I was blown away by this story. And I said, this has got to be written down. Somebody's got to write a book. And the short story is I ended up being the one to write the book. And I'm very proud of that. But after I finished it with the 2 historical novels and a nonfiction about this, I was in a place mentally where I thought, I've got to write. I want something to do doesn't involve tons of research. I just want to do something fun for me, and I don't really care if anybody else ever reads it. I just want to play. Okay, and find the joy of, just for the joy of writing something. And I was kind of thinking, wonder what that's going to be. I have no idea. Maybe I could do something about police work. I don't know. But I was standing in the mirror brushing my teeth, and 3 little words popped into my head. I don't know where they came from. They came up from the muse or somewhere, and they came with the feeling. And writers will maybe know this feeling. And to me, it's almost a tingling in my hands because I've typed on the keyboard that I needed. There's a story, there's something to be written. And so I spit real fast from my toothpaste and ran to my laptop, put my hands on the keyboard and typed those little words, having no idea where it was going. Vaguely knew it was a police officer's voice in my head. And it was Rose. And she was at it doesn't start exactly there now, but when I first was playing with it, she was looking down at the body of a person who had been shot in the back twice by her. And that's where we entered. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Where are we going? And from there, a little magic kind of introduced itself. And it turned out that Rose actually saw a few moments into the future and knew her partner was going to be shot if she didn't shoot. But she can't tell that story because that was the first time it ever happened to her. Wow. So,
and what's the name of this book?
This is House of Rose.
you're back on House of Rose. Okay. Now, what I want to know is, you know, you said you kind of you fell into becoming a police officer. You never really.
It was an accident.
How did that accident happen?
Well, I wanted to be an astronaut. That's how that story started.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I did. I wanted to meet aliens. They are, you know, to me, that was the most cool thing you could possibly do. When I was about 10 years old, I actually wrote a letter to NASA asking them what courses I needed to take in college in order to be an astronaut. And I don't know how much time we have, but my father shot that idea down when my mother gave him the letter to read because she thought it was so cute. And my father said, "No, honey, can't do that. Your eyesight's too bad." And so that just upended my entire world. And
you're hysterical. Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. You know, my cousin wanted to be in the NASA program, so he triple majored in college in like physics, mathematics, and astronomy. But I think he had a problem like eyes too. He ended up going into the Air Force and being a pilot. So, but
well, that's close.
Close.
I know as a police officer, I got to say, I never met aliens, but I did meet a lot of strange people.
Yeah, I can imagine. And have you live outside Birmingham, not right directly in Birmingham, is that correct?
Yes, I live on a little mountain outside of Birmingham.
Well, I have a lot of author friends there, so I've been there many a time and love their Sidewalk Film Festival. So, but I've read a lot of books about Birmingham and the civil rights, and it's fascinating to me. You mentioned something that I want to clarify with our listening audience. A lot of people think that my International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys book club only reads women's books. That's why this year I actually gave it a more realistic name, because we're an international book club. We read both men and women's books, fiction, nonfiction, all genres. The only thing I don't embrace is erotica, because I've got so many young people that end up joining our book club. So I really, I always tell people, you know, don't do anything at our annual book club convention you wouldn't want your minister to see, because she might be there, because we've had a lot of pastors and people involved with the church at whatever religion at our event. So you have written a wide variety. There's a saying that she thinks outside the box. What is your thought on that?
About writing a variety of,
or just thinking outside the box. Would you say you're an author that thinks outside the box? Yeah,
I am. And, I was told fairly early on, because after I gave up being an astronaut, I figured what I really wanted to do was be a writer. And I had an epiphany moment when I knew that was what I wanted to do, but I also knew I needed another career path to make some money, because, I was a little realistic about that. But I was told early on, the way to success as a writer is to pick one thing, one genre, and write like that, and build up a following. And that's, in the days when they wanted supposedly you needed to change your name if you did something different, because you would be letting down your readers would be expecting this, and then they would buy a book and get something different from you. So I grew up in that era, but I'm fortunate that I don't rely on writing to eat. And I do recommend that you try not to do that. If you're lucky enough to, good for you. But don't do that. So you write for the love of writing, and you write the stories that bubble up. As you say, it's about the story. Whatever story is interesting enough with me, because I have to live with this story for, a year, 18 months, however long. My new book took 8 years to write. If it doesn't interest you and pull you as an author in there, how am I going to be interesting to other people? So I write what I want to, what I would like to read and what interests me.
Well, I have two comments. First of all, people say, you really think outside the box. And I go, what box?
What box? You don't even see the box, Kat.
I don't even see it. And I don't think you do either. I think your books are interesting and they are from a perspective, but you have a joy for life that comes out through your voice in your books that, you know, this is something I don't think you can learn. It comes, like you said, it comes from that muse within or whatever. And the other thing is Marilyn Simon Rothstein, who I just did in my last Blue Sky Writers Chat earlier this afternoon. She said, you know, I was working in, you know, the magazine industry, and I decided I'd go for a career where I could make, you know, more money. So I chose to become a writer. And I had a good chuckle on that because you know, the percentage of, I think they said something like 300,000 books now are published a year. You know,
so it's astronomical.
It's, you know, one out of every two people want to write a book. So how in the world do you break out by, I think if books that I've loved, like To Kill a Mockingbird, if it came out today, they would say, I don't know, this was a white author writing a story and from a Black man's perspective. And, you know, I don't care who writes a book. I don't care who publishes a book. But if it's well written and it's a story that engages me, one that I read so much. I mean, I can pick up a book and I can tell you pretty quickly if I'm going to select it or not. Most of the books I receive are written. They're very well written. But the problem is we've already broached that subject matter, but we've never read a book about a police officer who's also a witch. I mean, there's plenty of vampire, you know, Abraham Lincoln is a vampire. There's plenty of those kind of books, but the witch thing, and witch is a very strange word because when I look back at my grandmother, who did a lot of medicinal things with poultices and different things, you know, some people might say, oh, a person that deals with herbs and all that stuff could be a witch. Or they might think that they don't have a belief in God. But I think witch is just a derogatory term. I wish we could come up with a better word. I think a magical woman, a woman who has capabilities that aren't explanatory maybe, or a sense of intuitiveness that you don't normally get with somebody. But you know, I don't have any problem with witches. I love practical magic. I love, you know, The Witches by Roald Dahl when I was a kid. I've always found them kind of fascinating. And just like The Wizard of Oz, there's a good witch, there's a bad witch, and there's witches in between. But so what is your writing process? I mean, what is an average day for TK Thorne as an author? What do you do? Do you get up and have your coffee?
Not average anything.
You don't see, there you go. You're just, you write when you feel the need to write, or?
Yes, I do. And I count editing as writing. It's very important. You know, it's like pie smooths out your face. It's important what you count.
Very important. But do you get your book completely down first and then, or do you edit it as you go?
No, I do a combination. It's nice to know where you're headed.
Right.
When I started Noah's Wife and Angels, I had an idea because I very loosely followed the biblical story, but with my own twists. Okay, I like to turn things upside down and look at it from a different perspective. So I mentioned the bird. Well, the bird, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the bird in there is actually a parrot, not a dove, the white bird, and that kind of thing. So I forgot what we're talking about.
We're just talking about, you know, what the writing process and how you work on it.
Oh,
I know I have some people say I get everything written down, then I go back. But, you know, I'm kind of like you, the way I work, it's a combination, because if I write it all down, maybe something when I edit it gets changed, then everything that you've written is like not going to work. So you kind of have, I have a weird process where I write the beginning, the middle, and the end. And then, because I do a thing, and I got this from my agent. My agent, when I was asked to publish the book of my first year of opening this hair salon bookstore, and then getting on every kind of media thing you could, from Newsweek, Time, Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, Good Morning America. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. And I was asked to write the story, and I go, I don't even know where to begin. I was born a child in Eureka, Kansas. You know? I thought, oh, boring. And my agent said, write down your aha moments, the things that happened in your life that completely changed your trajectory of the way your life was going. And then once I had that, it was so easy to do. It was easy for me to fill in those stories. What was interesting, and I don't know, I was published by one of the big five. I was bought by Time Warner, that got bought out by Hachette Media Group, and then they changed the name to Grand Central Publishing. So under that umbrella. But when I wrote my book, they cut out a bunch of chapters. And ones that were very important to me, but they said nobody really knows. They'll go in my next book, I'm going to tell you. But I wrote about how important nature was in my life. I wrote about how important animals were, my pets were in my life, because it shaped me immensely. And I wrote about those two things, and then my children. Having my children really changed everything. All of a sudden, it wasn't all about me, it was about them. And so they kind of put them all together in a little thing at the end. And I still feel the same thing. Nature is a big part of my life. So are my kids, and, you know, and so are my pets. So I'm glad that you have cats and dogs in your books. And, you know, we like cats and dogs and squirrels. And
I'll tell you a little funny story about the dog in Angels at the Gate.
I'd love to hear it.
The dog is a Saluki, okay, which is it's the oldest breed of dog that they know about, or at least one of the oldest, and it's a sight hound. So think of like an Afghan or a greyhound. They're beautiful, very trim, slim, fast dogs, and they use them for hunting in the desert. And they're prized by the Bedouins even today.
Really? And tell me the name of it again.
Saluki.
Saluki.
Aluki. Yeah.
But they look like an Afghan. Are they white in color?
Well, there are different colors. There could be, you know, a fawn color, or
they just blend in with the same, probably.
Nami was black with brown eyebrows. And brown points. So they're different colors, but they're gorgeous animals. But so Nami plays a really important role in shaping this narrative. And my father, who was born in Brooklyn and never really cared about animals, when I told him I wanted to live, you know, have some property and live out in the country, he's like, why? And I said,
say that to me all the time. I'd much rather live in the woods, in the country.
But his response was, why? And I said, I don't know, I like trees around me. And he said, trees? You want trees? Go to a park.
So no, that's not the same.
He was like that about animals too, is my point.
He didn't like them in the house, I bet.
Huh?
He didn't.
Well, he just never had been around animals. He grew up in Brooklyn, and you know, they didn't have pets and they didn't have trees unless you went to the park. And so and he just never wanted one. Well, he was like in his 80s when I wrote this book, and I let him read it. He didn't read books either until he got in his 80s. He read manuals and popular mechanics, but he never read a fiction until he got.
That was like my father too.
He turned it, and he read my book. Thank you, Daddy. And I'm at work, and he calls me, and he said, "Teresa," that's what he called me. And I said, "What, Daddy?" He said, "I've been thinking." And I said, well, what? He said, "I think I want a dog." And I'm like, "Oh, wonderful, Daddy. I can't believe that." And he said, "And I want a dog just like Nami," which is my Saluki. Okay. He lived in a little suburban house with no fence in his yard, and he wanted this, desert hunting dog. And I said, "No, Daddy, that's not what you need, but that's what I want." He said, "I want a dog like Nami." So she made a big impact on him.
Oh,
yeah.
That's really, my dad.
He ended up with a cat, by the way.
Yeah, did not ever want animals. But for some reason, every time I go to visit him on his back step, there'd just be bowls and dishes everywhere. And I go, well, there's a cat. And he's an old Tom, like me. And he goes, looks like he's been in a few scrapes. And I just give him a little of this and that. And in the house, I'm seeing bags and boxes of all kinds of foods and stuff. He never let it come into the house, but I think he took care of a lot of animals. But I think animals help make us more human, and they give us companionship. But I don't know how I would have made it through COVID without my 2 cats that are they're nowhere to be found right now. I guess they went to bed. I've been keeping them up awful late. But that's an interesting story, because now, do you have a dog now?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is that your type of dog?
The dog that we have now is a rescue, and I would be stretched to try to figure out what the heck he was. He's just a little lover that got rescued off the street, and my cat's a rescue. We had a pug that was a rescue from our son.
Yeah, Coco. The poodle I had was my daughter's dog, and then she went to college, couldn't have it. So had him 16 years. And, but yeah, in fact, after girlfriend weekend, I'm taking in another cat. And I swore I never would, but my friend Barbara rescues animals. And she said, "This one is beating up my old cats." And it's a calico, and it's just full of, sass. And I go, okay, my cats need some entertainment, bring it over. But after girlfriend weekend, I have the feeling fur would be flying while I was doing this show. Absolutely. But anyway, and you've written these. When did you write the first book? How old were you at the time?
Well, I have to tell you that this was my first published book, but I have 7 practice books that I wrote.
Wow.
During the years before.
Well, you may find that when you finally get one that gets that big break, like Lisa Wingate did with, Before We Were Yours, she wrote 30.
Wow.
And they just the last couple of years, they released her first one, Tending Roses, and it's had great success. A lot of the, the publishing thing is, I don't know, the alignment of stars, luck, what has it, but timing has a lot to do with everything. And I think that, if a book doesn't get published, it doesn't mean it's not anything wrong with it. It just may be not ready.
Yes, and actually this year I've had a hard time doing creative stuff this year. So I've been doing a lot of editing. Actually, if things go right, I have 3 books coming out this year, which is going to be crazy.
3?
But, yeah.
Oh, you have been busy.
Well, it's just they've piled up and didn't get published, and the 2 of them are from one publisher and another one's from another. So they're just all going to hit this year. But I've done a ton of editing, and I've gone back, and one of the books that I wrote before this one, is a science fiction where I do get to meet those aliens.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, I don't think the Pulpwood Queens have, I'm thinking 21 years of reading. I'm trying to think if we've ever read a book about an alien. We've read some science fiction like Pierce Brown Hunger Game like books.
Yes, that's really hot now. This goes back to a more old-fashioned type of science fiction when people actually travel to other worlds, and for me, the whole point of meeting an alien is to reflect back on what it means to be human. You're right. When you encounter something strange and something with a whole different culture, it makes you look at your own culture in a different way and your own humanness. So
one of the books that we're reading is Sapiens, The Brief History of Humankind, and they've come out with a graphic novel of it, and it shows, all these different people from different cultures and religions, and they said the only humans alive today are Homo sapiens.
That's right.
But there were other types of humans in previous years, and I don't know if that really sunk in with me when I was taking anthropology and different things at the time, and I didn't really realize it, but that kind of fascinated me because, and then there's always been the talk that they think that maybe there were alien people that lived here at the same time as us, like especially in Egypt. Or, they found all those skulls. I'm trying to think of the country where they have the very elongated craniums. Yeah. And so I don't think we know everything yet. So to explore those possibilities in a book, that's fascinating. It's really fun. And so is it going to be a scary book or just a book like, I loved what is it, 12,000 Leagues Underneath the Sea? Those type of movies were out when I was a kid, where they would go down to the center of the earth and they were in this. I just love those stories where we would go back in time to caveman times or far into the future where, things were different. So what is it, a scary book or just kind of one of those like?
It's not scary and it's not dystopian like the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
It's, but it is set in the future and it is set in a time when mankind is dealing with the viruses and so forth.
Oh, wow.
Kind of in that sense, it's quite timely, but I wrote it many, many years ago.
Do you know that what people don't realize about viruses is the pandemic of 1918. I mean, I remember here in East Texas, there was this smallpox epidemic that killed out enormous amounts of people, especially Native American Indians and things back in the day. And in Shreveport, Louisiana, they have a whole section of the cemetery where they have mass burials of all the people that died from that virus. So we tend to think that this is the first time this has ever happened, or the first time it's been hotter than usual or colder than usual. We go through cycles, of where this happens. And so you're touching on some really great subjects that just may hit that little niche where you're at the right place at the right time. But we're excited
about that story because I loved it, and I love the character. Her name is Moats, which is short for Mozart, and she's
that's a great idea.
Yeah, and she's a genius, and she she gets expelled from school on Mars and has to go to this planet where her father is doing research with these alien creatures.
Sounds like a Netflix series to me that I would watch. I watched one called Rain. Have you seen that one called Rain?
I've not seen Rain. I thought it looked too scary.
It's not the kind of scary that were blood and gore and things. It's just not knowing.
Yeah.
Is is scary, but I couldn't quit watching it. It was fascinating. So after, you know, how far along are you on this next book?
On that book's finished. My agent is looking at it right now.
So you've got a little lapse, but you're very smart, because you don't sit around and wait until the book comes out and then decide what to write again. You start in again, right?
Oh, yeah. I start working on something, and I also have another book that I wrote years and years ago, and got kind of put in the drawer. is a trilogy about the ancestors of King Arthur, and that's sort of it's a historical fantasy. So, you know, I've been playing with that.
I love that you're just all over the place. It's whatever I don't know. Did you see my response on the Breathless Bubbles and Books today about, I thought, I'm going to answer this really honestly. And of course, the person is going to be just like me, but have all those attributes. And I just thought, those are all the things I'd like to have in my life. In fact, I dream about being able to skate or dance or, you know, and I'm really good. Do you ever have those kind of dreams? I'm running beside cars so fast they can't keep up with me, and I am so unathletic. I mean, I approach everything with abandon, but I'm just not. I just didn't get my dad was an athlete. My sisters were very athletic, but I just didn't get those genes. I did not get those. I mean, I can trip over my own foot.
Isn't it wonderful though, in your dream, when you can just run as fast and hard,
and you're never out of breath?
Never out of breath. Your legs never hurt, and it's just powerful and joyful.
I kind of think that's kind of the way heaven might be. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I also kind of think of it as a place where I can see all my pets that have gone on before me, because I'd really like to see them again. I was telling somebody the other day, they go, you know, when you die, do you want to see your family members again? I go, no, not really.
I want to see my dog
I want to see my dog and my cats and my, you know, and my pet squirrel. I want to see all my little animals that they have been my constant companions, and I miss them. I miss them every day. So, and it just, I've always been an animal person, but mostly I think because my parents didn't allow animals in the house. Mm-hmm. So of course I gravitated to always sneaking them in. I can remember as a child sneaking a kitten in and hiding it in my bottom dresser drawer.
Oh my God.
When my mom came in to check that we were tucked into bed, meow, and she found it. We actually kept that cat, but outside. But you know, we've always had an outside pet, because my sisters and I we're all three of us are just, in fact, my sister has 26 cats.
Oh my gosh.
They're all outside, but she lives in a Victorian house, historical Victorian house, and you could eat off her floor. It's so clean. You would never know she had a cat, but I don't know how she does it. I go, she must just work constantly trying to, but her house, she's a little OCD.
Well, they go inside, and she doesn't have to really deal with the.
Well, they come in when it's cold. She lets them all in.
Cat inside.
She's even had raccoons come inside, and you would never know it though. If you go in her house, it's been on candlelight tour so many times, and I'm funny. But she kind of amazes me. But the animals find her. They love her. In fact, every family pet we ever had always was Karen's, because she just had an affinity for animals. And so when I got out on my own, I said, I want a cat that's all mine and nobody else's. So I've got 2 of them now. And soon I'm gonna have 3. And I said, what's this cat's name? She goes, I didn't give it one because it's a little hellion. I said, well, I'll wait. When I get it, we'll have to come up with a name. We'll have to come up with a name. So, during this COVID virus, what has kept you focused? The writing? What do you do? I mean, it's hard to get out. It's so cold here right now. It was nicer today, but what is the one thing that has kept you from going stir crazy in your home?
Well, there's two things really. One thing is I took up Tai Chi, and that has just been a godsend because it is part exercise and part stretching and part of mental. It's like meditation.
Yes.
When you do it. And so anytime I get antsy, I'll get up and run through the Tai Chi, and that's helped a lot.
That's, yeah, that's cool. What's the other thing?
The other thing that I did, and this was like earlier on in the year when there was so much stress, I don't know, I felt I couldn't handle it. I didn't know what to do. And my creative stuff wasn't flowing. And so I declared war on Chinese wisteria.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay. If you're not familiar with Chinese wisteria, never ever get any. It is beautiful when it blooms, but it is purple. It's those drapey.
Yeah, I actually grew it. I grew it around the arches of my bed and breakfast, and it was beautiful. I loved it. But
well,
I know
if you buy the right kind, there's an American variety that's not too terrible, but the Chinese, Japanese kind, I live in woods, and it literally took over half of my backyard and grew all in the woods. And what it does is it sends out a vine underneath the ground, and it can pop up like yards away from where the mother plant is. And then it has nodes along the way, and each node will go straight down into the earth. You cannot hardly pull it up. So that took me months to clear my backyard. That's all I wanted to do. And it was such hard physical labor that it took all my concentration to focus on doing it. And then I did get a little creative with it because I had all these vines, right? And I have these two very old metal clothes hanger. Remember the old metal T-bar things out of gray metal? I've got some in the backyard, and I never got rid of them because I always thought we're going to have a pandemic one day and I need to dry my clothes somewhere. So I kept them for that strange little voice in the back of your head, don't get rid of that thing. But they're very ugly. So I took all of the vines and wrapped them in like crazy art shapes around these T-bar things. And then I planted beans and they grew up on them. So that was my kind of spring and summer project. That's really insane, just working outside and doing stuff and working hard so that I slept when I came in.
Yeah, I've heard from more people it's really hard to sleep. And I have always had a hard time since I've become an adult sleeping because I always wake up when the kids would cry, and I don't sleep much. I stay up late. I get up in the middle of the night and I might take another short nap and then get up again. And then I go until late at night again. So I don't even know how much I sleep during the day. I never really sleep long, but I'm one of these people that if I don't lay in bed, if I can't sleep, I get up and do something. Yeah. And whether it's repaint a room. I mean, I wallpapered a wall the other day just because I just had to do something. I've totally redone the inside of my house. I've repainted all the walls, re-wallpapered. I've, done everything I could. I thought, well, make good use of the time. Yeah. And working on 3 books and working on all my art, and then the Pulpwood Queens. I mean, this has just consumed my time, but I probably got more things done this year than I have in the last 10, because, you be careful what you wish for. Have you ever had, if I just had a day that I could get caught up, or if I could just have a week where I could get all the closets cleaned out. Well, I started doing that every day. I'd just tackle a drawer at a time and got them all done. It's probably time for me to start doing it again. But we got that girlfriend weekend coming up right around the corner. Tomorrow's your last day to blog before the weekend. because we don't want you worn out for the weekend. We want everybody to go to bed early on Wednesday, because once it starts, it's going to be so much fun. I am really thankful for that you joined me tonight for the Pulpwood Queen online book club meeting. For those that will be listening this later, please like, watch, subscribe. It's free to my channel. And click, there's a little icon bell up in the right-hand corner. If you click on that, it'll send you notifications every time a new video's up.
Okay.
So, and it's free. Just click. And then this will all be downloaded and will go up onto that channel tonight. I may not get it up depending on how long it takes till morning, but it will be shared, and all my social media, and I'll send it to you so you can share it. But thank you for joining me. And it's been a fun week. I look forward to what you have tomorrow, because you have really broached some really interesting topics for the conversation for your blogs this week. I've loved the pictures, and I'm real interested to see what you have to say tomorrow. It'll be
too.
You too? Haven't done it yet, I take it. So, well, that's all right.
Oh, thanks.
As long as it's up before 9 in the morning, will be great. But tomorrow I will be posting the program privately to everybody who's attending with all the links. And I am very excited about Girlfriend Weekend this year. I was actually kind of dreading it, because I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. Then we had for those listening, we had a practice Zoom meeting with, we have about 70 authors, presenters, keynotes coming, and 60 showed up. And it was so smooth. And they were from British Columbia, Ontario, Canada, Paris, France, even in Spain. And we've got people coming in from all over the world. So please, you can still get your tickets. You'll even be able to buy your tickets during Girlfriend Weekend, and because you can always watch them later. So even if you come in on the last day, you'll be able to watch them later. So you can get your packages up on www.thepulpwoodqueens.com. Now, Teresa, if anybody wants to contact you, what's the best way to ask a burning question or talk to you about getting an autographed book? How do they reach you?
I think the easiest way is just on my website, and then go use the contact.
What is your website? Share it with everybody.
TK Thorne, THORNE.com.
Okay, you heard it, everybody. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Rest up and power on to Girlfriend Weekend. It's all about the story.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon. Bye-bye, Teresa.
Thank you.
You're welcome.